didn't give much thought to this video today, but I'm just gonna wing it. I usually wing it every day, but usually I'd actually process the whole conversation in my head, the whole monologue in my head before I actually film the video. But today, literally nothing. But I wanna talk about setting limits on yourself because lately, especially nowadays in the recent years, in the height of social media, we've seen that there's a rise of people wanting to attach labels to themselves, people wanting to diagnose themselves as certain things just to justify how they are, the way they are, or just to justify their behaviors, the characteristics they exude as a person. And the way I view it is that's really, I don't know why I said usually, that's really setting limits on yourself as a person, because the moment you label yourself something and you're not doing it in order to identify something you might be struggling with or identify some difficulties you may have not really been conscious of, so now you want to identify what's really going on so you can help yourself improve and you can help yourself find ways to actually maneuver through those difficulties, through those, say, bad habits or bad characteristics. But in turn, you just use it to justify the way you are, just to justify your being and say, okay, this is how I am. I just can't help it because I'm this. I have ADHD. I have avoidant attachment style. I'm a neurodivergent. All those bunch of labels people use. I'm an introvert. Like those are the biggest ones nowadays where people say I'm not really fond of people. I can't really talk to people because I'm an introvert. When really that's not even the basis of what an introvert is. Most people are just suffering from social anxiety, and they label it as being an introvert because they've put that label on themselves to where now they are limiting themselves. They are putting themselves in a box to where now they can act out of it. They can identify, okay, these are my shortcomings, these are the areas I struggle in, and in order to improve I need to do one and two. It might not be something that comes easier to me as with other people, but these are the ways I can go about it to actually improve. So I think that's the whole problem with labeling yourself anything. Like, by labeling yourself, you're setting limits on yourself, you're setting these parameters. Like, now you're in this framework, you're in this box, and you can't act outside of it because you are this now. This is who you are. All these labels now, you have to abide by them. And every time you might try something new, or you might try doing something new, it's gonna feel out of character because in your mind you've already labeled yourself. You've already set frameworks of how you should be. So I think that's the downside of it that people don't really notice nowadays, because they may it's all fun and games. Actually, it's all fun and games if you really think about it. So learn about yourself, to understand yourself better, to say, oh, okay, this is why I've been struggling with this. This is why I've been finding difficulty in doing this and that. And okay, but then the problem with people is once they know that, once they get to that point, now they don't want to move on from it. They don't want to act outside of that thing. Now it's like, okay, now I've been justified. Now I can explain my actions. Now I can explain my being. And I can kind of hold no accountability for certain actions I may have, or for certain behavior I may exert. And even though it may be harmful to people, even though it may impact other people around me in a bad way, I can kind of justify it and take no accountability because I'm just this. this is who I am. And I think that's a bad way. And I think that's something people should identify and see, that the more they try to seek labels, the more they try to diagnose themselves as anything, they are in turn setting limits on themselves, because if they don't see them seeking diagnosis to whatever characteristics they may have as a way to actually identify the problem they are having and work themselves out of them, but in a way to justify themselves for being that way, then they will be stuck in that character, they will be stuck in that persona for the rest of their lives, because now it's like you can't do anything outside of this. And I know I'm repeating myself, like right now I'm really repeating myself, but I think people need to really understand this. Like, I'm someone who's very conscious of my actions. I'm someone who's very conscious of most things I do and why I do them. And yes, I've fallen into the trap of finding diagnosis, of finding labels up of why I act the way I am, and finding understanding of why I've been the way I've been in the past and even nowadays. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand. But then I had to also identify after that at times I found myself, when I was acting or when I was doing a certain thing, I was like, okay, this makes sense because I'm this, or this makes sense because I'm that, or why am I doing that? That's not me because I'm this. And then I was like, what's really going on? It's like, now I feel rigid. Now I feel I lack flexibility. Now I feel like I have to abide by this new identity, or this identity, newfound identity of myself, because I've been this way for say whole of my life, as long as I remember, and I need to be this way because this is who I am. Because I've done research and seen, okay, these are the habits of this kind of person. These are the characteristics of this kind of person. So if I try to do anything outside of that, now I feel weird. And I had to recognize, no, putting labels on myself is limiting me, actually. If I'm always conscious of what label I am, what diagnosis I am, I'm putting labels on myself, basically, because now I can't do anything outside of that. So I would say the only best thing about diagnosing yourself or finding labels for yourself is to identify certain difficulties about yourself, certain behaviors you might not really like about yourself, to actually see the problem with them, and then you can find ways to work out of them, to work to like remove them from your life by adapting to new behaviors, to new characteristics. And I think that's the only way. But if you just do it just to justify your actions, then you're literally limiting yourself, then you're setting traps for yourself, then you're boxing yourself into this identity, and you can never be anything outside of it. And I think that's the downside of it. Do not limit yourself.